Hello everyone, welcome back to Springrealms, our wonderful little Patron server. So, last time we saw how we were going to be dealing with lore, entering into the minds of visitors to the archive of sites, and severely messing them up. This is where I get... Oh, thanks Meg, I did not in fact get the blindness, that would have been a pain. I just got jump boost. Okay. And I talked a little bit about how we'd be doing the Librarian setup, where we give witches special individual spells, and now it is largely set up. I've got a couple more spells to wire, but here we go. So as you can see, we are using a much more rapid version of the lore system over there. And this is purely the setup section. So this is where we decide what kind of librarian a given witch in the area is going to become. And it is worth noting that this entire selection does happen in the entire, like, bedrock to sky limit area of the dungeon. So consequently, if you build a platform under the dungeon where it won't get, like, regenerated away, witches will spawn there and they will get turned into librarians. I might change that, but that could be an interesting thing to play around with. So, what first happens is that we tag them all with librarian setup, and then we set their timer value to 0, so that everything... So basically, the timer value is important for how the magic works. I'll explain that in a moment. But that's an important thing that we need to remember. And we also decrease the score of librarian sorter, anything that's above 2, down to 1. So that's all of these 4 armor stands. It's just the timer system basically that we have over there. And when we finally hit it, we execute from the correct one. So Librarian sort freeze, lightning, animate, and levitate. And then we do all of these things. So we give them the right def table, we give them the right name, we set their tags. So all librarians have the tag of librarian and then a specifier of what kind of librarian they are. So in this case it's librarian freeze because that's the spell. So this iterates very quickly, and every single time it does, it only changes one librarian setup witch. So if a big group of witches spawns, because this is hijacking natural spawning, just as we did in Moarboca's, what happens then is that only one of them becomes a lightning, and then only one of them becomes a levitate, and yada yada yada. It's not random, it is sequenced, which is not perfect, but it moves so quickly that it is functionally not a huge deal. And there's no real telling where in the line a given group of witches has spawned. So either way, it ends up being pretty good. And so from there, if I just get rid of that, and that just in case, I can spawn me a crackling librarian. This is the lightning summoner. So whenever they are ready to use their magic, they have these crit particles around them. Whenever they are currently on cooldown, whenever they are rebuilding their magical potency, they actually have enchantment particles on them, but I don't actually have the capacity to do that because I don't have this particular one set up, so let's see if we can get a different one. Definitely, nope, there's literally the 2 that I haven't set up yet, jeez. Floaty, okay, there we go. So the floaty librarian. Now if I stick that there, and this there, we can see, yep, that they are regaining their magical potency, and in a moment they will be once more able to cast their spell. So in the case of the floaty librarians, we are given levitation 5 for a few seconds, and that is meant to hurl you into the air and drop you. Of course, in here it's not very high to do much damage. So there are 4 different spells, and as you remember, we set their timer variables to 0. So from there, every one that's above 2, we try to decrease by 1. Every librarian with a score of timer greater than 2, and that will eventually mean that they hit 1. Once they have hit 1, the only thing that can put them down to 0 is a player being within 4 blocks of them. So every player within this area gets this command run on them as long as they're outside of spectator mode. So remove librarian, score timer 1, timer min 1, within 4 blocks, timer 1. So that will set their values to 0. From there, we are able to detect all of the librarians that have a score timer value of 0, meaning you can cast your spell and you should cast your spell. So from there we add a clarifying tag, mostly for ease of use. We could do this just this the whole time through, but it's easier just to add a tag for it. And then we play a nice little sound, run our effect, set our timer value back to its cooldown, which differs per spell, and then we just clean up to remove that tag. So we have 4 different spells planned. Obviously, you've just seen Floaty. And can I land down here, please? There we go. Okay. So the different spells have different ranges of effect. They have different numbers of players, different severities, that kind of thing. So Freeze, for example, targets up to 8 nearby players with slowness 10 for 6 seconds. Doesn't target other entities, doesn't target other librarians or witches or whatever, just targets players. So consequently, you are then stuck in place while the witch is pretty much probably still chugging potions at you. So then we have, well, the cooldown on that one is 150. Then we have Lightning, which is more or less exactly what you want. Targets 2 nearby players with lightning bolts, which is a slash summon. Basically, 2 of these are slash effect and 2 of them are slash summon. Then we have Animate Dead, which summons 3 skeletons, 2 of them using swords, which means they charge at you, and 1 of them using a regular bow. Hopefully that means that they'll never end up with crossfire, but we'll see. These 2 are going to have longer cooldowns, I think, because they are pretty dangerous, to say the least. And then we have Levitate. So target up to 4 nearby players will levitate 5 for 8 seconds, who take falling damage and are removed from combat for a bit, because this is a very vertical dungeon, which is going to put you in quite a bit of danger, and the cooldown on that one is 200, so it's a longer cooldown than just the Freeze, but I think that will do quite well. So that, barring these 2 spells that I still have to set up, which will not take me very long, it's very simple, very straightforward, is our Librarian Spellcasting system. It's not the same as the player spellcasting system, in that there's a cooldown and you have to use have to have a certain volume of spirits, and you have to have the book and all that. These librarians don't have multiple spells at their disposal, but we are going to have a boss librarian, of course, the Grand Archivist. So, consequently, the Archivist will have multiple spells, and will use a system very similar to this, but instead of having this sorting system, they will instead just be having timers for different abilities, so they can use different abilities on cooldowns, as it were. And that's a very interesting thing that we'll get to be playing with a little bit later, because that is approaching the system used by actual boss mobs in MMOs and such, and I'm doing it with command blocks in Minecraft. I've been saying this a bunch recently, that I just love how much I am getting to reverse engineer things inside of command blocks and Minecraft. So there's a Book of Lying video on how to make a full-blown mob spawner system, because I've had to do that here on Springrealms, and there's another one on how to well, I might make one for soon, actually, on how to hijack natural spawns, because this is an interesting concept, and this is the most complex version of it that I've used to date. But if we go to Moarboca, which we should be able to with this book, so Coldforge. Oh, and someone's fortified it a little bit, okay. So here in Moarboca, we have, of course, the Furnace Drakes, and the Furnace Drakes themselves are also a hijacked form of mob spawning. So let's see that one. These are all melee. Where is an archer type? I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find one in time. Oh, hang on, we'll go down here. Are you a melee type? Yes, you are. Okay. Oh, and you're an archer type. Okay. So there are 2 different types of Furnace Drake, and the reason for that is that they are... They are all culled from skeletons and from zombies over here. So what happens is we identify all of the skeletons and zombies, and we convert them into melee or archery Furnace Drakes. And it's a little bit more complicated with the zombies, because we have to make sure the zombies die immediately after they actually do that, because they have to summon a skeleton. You can't change entity type with entity data, which is a shame, but I can kind of understand why that would be the case. Whereas the skeletons just get entity dated wholesale, which is pretty sweet, if I do say so. And that is just this line of command blocks. That is a grand total of 6 command blocks that allows you to hijack spawning in that regard. And I don't know, but one other thing, one little piece of news I do happen to have about this particular Patron server is that we have a new month, and with that we have a new patron. And I don't know, they're a small-time YouTuber, you might have heard of them, I'm not sure. They haven't really been doing very much recently in terms of Minecraft, but they've been doing a little bit of streaming every now and then. So I thought I might as well give them a little bit of a shout-out, because we now have Kieran Dave on the server. And Dave is going to be an admin, or at least has admin authority, and he's been kind of bowled away by all the stuff that we get up to around here with all of our command block creations and such, and sort of inspired by the Book of Lying videos, which I'm still not putting on a regular schedule. I think they're just going to be a stand-in in case I otherwise would miss an update. I need to enshrine that that naughty box, that's a timeout box, a bit better. But yep. So he is going to pop around, he's going to be doing a little bit of mad sciencing of his own, and we might get to see him building some small, some sort of mini dungeons that aren't going to be like the big ones that we release each month, which would be nice because the place... I like Springrealms, I really enjoy all the stuff we put into it, but at the end of the day, the vast bulk of it is empty void, which is a little bit inefficient. We have vast swaths of increasingly large spaces opened up every time that we beat a dungeon, and we don't really have terribly much in it. I did originally plan that there would be like some junk islands and some maybe ruined structures or such in the spaces between different islands and whatnot, but did not have time to implement that, and have not had time to implement it since because I've had all of these dungeons to build. So consequently, there is that. And Dave has sort of taken up the chalice on that one, so hopefully we get to see something soon. Obviously, Dave is a busy man, and we don't want to put too much pressure on his time. Oh, here we are at the little halfway house, which needs replanting. I might try and set something up for this. But we will see. We will see. Is it sunsetting? Yes, it is. It is sunset. It is sunsetting. Right. So, with that, hope you've all enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what kind of like magical spells should the Grand Archivist, the Uber Librarian, the boss of the Archive of Sites, employ against our unfortunate victims. And I shall catch you all next time. Okay, so that took a lot less time to explain than I thought it would, so I'm going to design like another one of these spells, and we'll talk a little bit about how the actual boss summoning is going to work, because it works significantly differently in this particular version, in this particular dungeon, I should say, than any other before it. So let's see, let's go with Lightning. That seems like a decent one to go for. So, the way that this is going to work is that you will go around the dungeon and you will find the book that summons the Grand Archivist. And that, in and of itself, is fairly easy to do. It's unlike other spells, it will just add a tag or a scoreboard value to an existing armor stand, and that will allow us to check whether we should spawn, and either way you will lose the book if indeed that is not the case. Actually I can do this a lot easier by going through here, can't I? So, clone, yay for ease of use, and paste, link. Right. The problem slightly comes in actually spawning the spell book for doing, for summoning the boss, because, as we found out inside of Basilla's dungeon, which is still due for heavy refurbishment, but nonetheless, if you aren't very careful, you can end up flooding the market with some items that should not be multiplied. It's a little easier with Aranis's dungeon because the idea is that you are grinding the Descendants to get a full armor set, and you're likely to get multiples of individual items anyways, so that's fine. Those are just regular colored, lore texted leather armor pieces. that's fine. Getting a book that can summon a boss, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated. Now, what we could say is that you can only use it inside the actual area of the dungeon, so it checks for players in the area of the dungeon before it does anything else. Or, alternatively, we can apply some kind of special conditions to how it should be spawned. So let's want that, and then we just want to summon lightning bolts, I believe it is, where those people are, and we want only 2 people within 8 blocks. The actual range of tripping one of these spells is about 4 blocks, so I can change that however I like, because that's the wonder of doing command block stuff. Okay, so we want 2 lightning, and that should be fine. And we want to give this a fairly long delay, so 2 lightning, timer 300. That is approximately, let me see, that's about 15 seconds between uses of this, which is fine because these are probably, summoning lightning is usually a fairly high damage kind of event, and then it's probably going to set you on fire, and you're going to have a lot of problems, basically. Okay. I did mention that you can probably end up just building a platform below the dungeon and waiting for witches to spawn, but you still have to deal with all of these spells, which is your main concern, really. Okay, so let's see, test for @e tag equals librarian lightning. Are there any about? No, there are not. Okay, well, can we get one then? That is a crackling. That is exactly the one that we're after. Okay. Give it a moment, and we can test this out then. So, yep, there we go. Okay, we clearly have a problem. So if we look over to here, did I forget something? Execute, do lightning, summon. Ah, that's probably the issue. I probably got this name wrong. No, it is lightning bolts. Okay. So what is the trouble here? @e tag do lightning, execute. Clearly, something is getting tripped here because we're seeing the timer get reset. Summon lightning bolts on these players. Should be working just fine. I'm not in any like special mode here. Okay, well let's just take that out. So we want to tell @p lightning. Always nice when you get a little bit of debugging to do. Okay, so that part worked. Complete with the magic sound effects. Okay. So, what if what's a decent test here? We can do particles. So, particle flame. Let's put that about 2.5 blocks above me. 0.2.2.208. Okay. Should give us another decent test. So, okay, yep. That's just fine. Is it the spawning part then? Could that be it? In which case, summon pig wherever I'm standing. Will that do the trick? Because it's clearly now we clearly know that it's the. Yep, there we go. Ah, hang on. Region info. Deny lightning. Bingo! So that's a slight problem with the region info, which I can fix easy as can be. So region flag dungeon. Dev lightning. Just remove that. So that should put us back on track, and of course, summon lightning bolt. But that does raise another question, actually. Currently, there's a lot of skeletons upstairs here, and this place is meant to be more witch-dominated, and the reason for that is because skeletons are just higher priority on the spawning lists, so the only way to get more witches around would be to deny skeletons as well, but as we can see from one of our spells here, we need to have skeletons, and if we try to summon skeletons in an area where skeletons can't naturally spawn, according to the region data, then they will not spawn. Now the problem for me is that if I try to spawn them at spawn and teleport them here, spawn is also mob proof. But the reason I would try to do that at spawn is that spawn is always loaded. So spawn is the only place that's reliable enough for you to actually deal with stuff. Yep, there we go. Good. Okay, so that's another spell working. Last one is the skeletons, but we'll work on that in a little bit. So we're going to have some special locations around the area that will spawn the spell book after a certain cooldown to get the boss summoned. And those will probably be far apart, and at least one of them might be down here, but they'll probably be mostly up in the high altitudes and such. That might even be one of the rafters, who knows. And you'll have to run around to find which one it has selected to actually spawn, and it will only spawn a new one after the timer for the boss to respawn has hit 0. And that will then mean that you should be able to spawn the boss. That does keep us down to 1 at a time, but as with Bacilla, there is no meaningful prevention of people taking these items out of the dungeon, so if we limit them to 1 at a time, then nobody gets to summon the boss because no one... Like, the person who had the spellbook, for example, might have just logged off of it in their inventory, so nobody can get a new one because it's already spawned, and yeah. So, the only way that we can really prevent that is to allow for multiple ones, and having multiple ones means you have a book that can summon a boss out in the wild, so you need to restrict its usability. So we probably have to try and restrict it to being used inside of the dungeon, which then makes it fundamentally useless, and you won't be able to... If you try and use it before the timer resets, at the very least, you'll still have to deal with the fact that it's going to remove itself from your inventory when you use it. It's a tricky balancing act, this particular boss, so I'm gonna have to have a bit of a think on it. But do let me know in the comments, firstly, what kind of spells the Grand Alchemist should have at its disposal, and secondly, what you would do. What do you think is the best course of action with regards to ensuring access to the boss without making it a dangerous abundance? So, with that in mind, now for reals. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I shall catch you all next time.